Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today I've got our part 4 of our relic farming guide, where we're going to be talking today about two pieces that actually cross groups into both the death by numbers and criminal conversion rates, being Electrium conductors and Zimal Cards. So strap yourselves in, let me know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as I am on vacation right now. Hopefully you guys have been keeping up with this series. Otherwise, there is a playlist that you guys can go check out. At the time of recording, these probably won't be linked in the video description. Just brutal honesty for all of you. Huge shout out to the channel members. Again, I'm not showing the graphic because I want this to be a much longer standing series. And so I felt like point in time membership card would not be as good as just kind of saying, yeah, you know what? Hey, thank you so much, channel members. So you guys get your shout out now. We are trying to hit 10,000 subscribers. If that happens, our King Wampa hits Relic 8 on a special, or Relic 9 on a special live stream. So thank you guys again for your continued support. I love you all so much. You are gentlemen, ladies, and scholars alike. Let's get into our relic farming guide. This will be linked in the video description. This is a Google Sheet that I created to kind of just summarize each of these things. There's a tab for each different relic piece that we're covering here today. So, there's a tab for every single piece across this entire series, as well as a few other additional tabs in here. So, let's get into our Electrium conductors. This piece is kind of unique. If you aren't taking characters beyond Relic 5, it's pretty easy to build a stockpile for these, right? You do accumulate these naturally through assault battles. And this is the first time I really mention assault battles as, hey, this is like a viable source of getting these. And that's because if you're kind of stopping at Relic 5, you will get these, right? It happens. You know, you get 6 of these. I think, you get 3 of these for each challenge tier you complete for every single assault battle. So you figure if you can do challenge tiers 2 and 3 for an assault battle, you're going to get 6 of these every single time. So they do add up, right? It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're not taking a lot of characters past Relic 5, they stockpile. Your con here, it's not a great conversion rate. I wouldn't quite call it criminal. And there's really not a good piece to salvage. As you guys saw in the earlier pieces, there was normally some go-to pieces or some decent ones, or there's enough of them that it kind of offsets. Here, as you guys will see, there's not a lot. I can fit all of them into one picture. It's all pieces you need on the left side of Gear 13, right? The left side of Gear 13. There isn't one piece that's better than the rest, right? It comes down to what you buy now. I do want to mention this because players love to talk about this. You can fully craft, but remember your stockpiles could run out. So what I want to show here, if I flip back over to the game, if we go to our Electrium conductors, and I want to fully craft, let's go to this piece. I think I have a lot of, yeah. So I've got 411 of these Mark 7 thermal detonators. And I've got, okay, 128 of these. So I could start fully crafting these. Here's the catch, though. I then need to make sure that I'm buying these pieces, right? A lot of us, when we were doing the old, Heroic Sith raid, you would get pieces like this naturally through that raid. You get so many of these, and you're like, why am I always getting these? And now that we've transitioned where you buy your own rewards, if you're not buying those, fully crafting these pieces is not as smart of a decision because you're going to then eventually run out of that other stuff, right? And have to replenish your stockpiles sooner. So just keep that in mind, that I think a lot of us for a long time were always been told, oh yeah, if you craft these, you can do really, really well. But now that you're going to have to buy them yourself, it's almost better that you don't do that. And that way you just save your currency to be able to buy other things. So, the first place that you can get things here, your Mark III raid currency, you can purchase these. Look, it is really cheap to purchase these. Comparative to the other relic pieces you can get with Mark III, it is very cheap. The problem here is it limits your purchasing of mats for higher relic levels. So it's going to limit your arrow magnifiers, Zinbiddle cards, even girded keypads, and then, it limits those pieces. Now, this can be a solid option when you're in a pinch. If you're in a situation where you need a lot of these, this can be a solid option because the price point is very lucrative. It's a very lucrative price point. I feel in the early parts of the game, this has a lot more value to players. I think as you progress, this kind of loses the value because early on, you're probably like, I just need to get to relics. You know, like I don't have the resources to stockpile these things. I need to get there. I think early on, this has a lot more value than it does later in the game. Now, I'm not saying that you only purchase these things with your Mark III raid currency. I'm just saying that I think early on, this has more value than it does as you progress later and later. Mark II raid currency, you can purchase the salvage for this, right? And this is a very solid option because it saves your Mark III tokens for other pieces. Your caveat here is you are going to limit your relic gear that you can buy, right? That you're buying gear here, but you're going to use it for relic pieces rather than taking a character from gear 12 to gear 13. Now, my recommendation is that later in the game, this becomes a lot more important. I think early on, you probably want to focus a lot more time. You're going to want to focus a lot more of this stuff on getting to the relics. Simply because it does take a while. Like, I think as you progress, this is one of those things that you start working in and buying those pieces up. The thing you want to make sure you're doing is purchasing gear that you can actually, like, craft into Electrum conductors if that's what you're going after. Just make sure you're doing that. You can also purchase these with your Guild Event Currency 1. Again, it's going to limit your purchasing of other stuff. Now, in my opinion, this is definitely a much later game strategy. Much later game strategy. The thing I say here is that make sure when you are scrapping these things and you're doing this that you're leaving enough in your inventory that you can equip gear when necessary. Don't completely drain yourself out of these resources and then need to go take another character to relic levels. Like, that's not as... You're just kind of hurting yourself at that point, right? You know, you don't want to be overly reliant. This is one of those pieces, as you guys are kind of seeing, that I think early on in the game, it's going to sound crazy that you're like, why would I not do this? But I think it's because for most players, they're not going into those higher and higher relic levels right away. They can't just jump right into it. So the Mark III raid currency kind of looks really good because it is a good way to get a lot of it all at once. Again, limiting your purchase of some of those other things, which we will get to. I said it has more value. I'm not saying it's great value by any stretch of the imagination. I said it's a solid option when it's in a pinch, right? That's what I want to, like, stand by here. Electrum conductors, unfortunately, there's really no good way. Split your resources as you see fit. Probably a mix of something like this is maybe the... It's definitely, yeah. I don't like this piece at all. This is just such a... If this wasn't in Assault Battles, players would riot. I have no doubt of that. Now let's move to Zinbiddle cards. Zinbiddle cards are only needed at Relic 7 and above. If you're only stopping at Relic 7, these are very easy to stay on top of. Like, if you stop at Relic 7, very easy to stay on top of. Once you start going beyond Relic 7, they get very hard. There's nothing good salvage. There's nothing good to salvage here. The conversion rate's terrible. Look, you can't pretend these grow on trees. You've got to be saving enough for your requirements. So often I see players get to like Relic 6 and then they can't go further because they've got all these Relic 7 characters that they have no need for. So there's your salvage, right? That's it. Now, just to show you, if you get 5 salvage per day that you can craft into a Zinbiddle card, right? If you can get 5 of these every single day, you're going to get 365 over the course of a year. You get one of them. If you can do 5 salvage a day, you get one full, one Zinbiddle card a day. Over the course of a year, you get 365 of them. That's probably plenty for 99.9999999% of players in this game. This pack here is actually pretty decent value, particularly compared to what you can purchase out of the shipments with. I would say this is another one where if you're getting anywhere from the 6 to 12 range, you're really doing well. Even the 4 is still a really solid option, but getting the 6 is super sweet. That's when I think you're even beating some of the other ways of obtaining these pieces. Now, there are some other ways you can get this. As you guys see up here, we can trade in these laptops. So if you farm Fleet 3A, you're going to get Zinbiddle card salvage and you're going to get Carbonite Circuit Board salvage at the same time. This is a great 2-for-1 if you're trying to get these pieces. If farming for salvage if you're farming these for salvage purchases or purposes, oh my gosh, I can't talk tonight. If you're farming these only for the purpose of salvage, then just recognize that you're limiting your intake of Gear 13 gear for the purpose of increasing relics. That you're not taking characters from Gear 12 to Gear 13, you're just improving relic levels. In my opinion, these nodes are great staples for farming salvage and gear, right? If you're trying to get these nodes, these are solid ones to farm. I very much like both of these nodes. Again, you've also got one here at Fleet 3C with that node, and I think I'd even brought this up when I was talking about farming Carbonite Circuit Boards as it is. So, again, very good nodes to do a 2-for-1, right? That you get 2 relic materials for the price of 1. You can get these for Guild Event Currency 3. Again, I think it saves your Mark III raid currency for Relic 8 materials, which can be very good. It does limit your purchase of higher mats, right? I say that every time. I mean, that is the con. That's the truth of it. I find these to be a really solid purchase, actually. This is something that I purchase pretty regularly with my Territory Battle rewards. It really works out well for me. I think that this is a really good purchase. I think that it has good value to it, especially for, you think of how often you're actually using these pieces. It's very easy to kind of stay on top of them, like I said, as long as you're not going beyond Relic 7. Again, they are available for Mark III raid currency as well. It is a pretty decent price point, but it's going to limit your purchasing of higher relic mats, which obviously we'll get into as we get into further parts of this guide. I do find these to be a pretty decent purchase every few raids. I don't say I go crazy with these every single time, but every few raids, I don't mind purchasing these things. I think they're at a pretty good price point. Now, Mark II raid currency, you can buy these laptops yet again, right? You can buy the laptops and scrap them into salvage. Like I said, it'll limit your purchasing. But if you're really in need of error magnifiers with your Mark III raid currency, this is a solid find. These are great to do. Again, your con here, you're limiting your purchase of that gear for any purpose other than relic salvage. But if you're trying to get error magnifiers to go to Relic 8s and trying to go to Relic 9s, and you can use your Mark II raid currency to help get those Zinbiddle cards, the salvage you need for them, this is fantastic, right? This is a solid thing. It's a solid purchase. I really cannot recommend enough that you do this, right? This is a really, really good purchase and price point. So if I flip back over to the game real quick, just to finish off into the Zinbiddle cards here, as you guys can see, not a lot going on here in terms of which pieces you're going to trade in and which ones you aren't. You could look at this piece and say, Phil, why didn't I mention this one? It really comes down to the fact that the gear on this node is not nearly as lucrative as these two nodes. And again, if you're farming these just for the sake of the salvage, you may as well try and get the most bang for your buck when farming relics, because like I said, you want to look at the full picture. You got to look at what's going to give you the most benefit at every single turn to be successful in farming your relics. So that's the end of this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, hit that subscribe button. Leave your likes, leave your comments. I love all you. May the force be with you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.